everyone, Redmen Originals Podcast time. I'm Paul Machin, Chris Pajak alongside me, and then alongside him is Chloe Bloxham, and then alongside her is Dan Clubb. Yeah, sorry, this laptop is very much obscuring your beautiful face there, Chris. I'm just going to lower it down a touch.
Said it, didn't I, before the show?
Wait,
it was hiding my belly as well, though, so I was fine with it. It was, checks and balances, mate.
Yeah, we're pleased to know, podcast listeners, that me and Chris are not wearing the same shorts and colour t-shirt this week. We've really mixed it up.
Are you wearing navy shorts?
I'm wearing navy shorts.
Good.
Yeah.
Me and Dan are on brand.
I had a stark realisation that I wear nothing but navy jeans but owned no navy shorts. Mm-hmm. So I was matching lots of my clothes to different colour shorts.
God, just talk about the football, will you?
No. Never! Aldi. How's your Aldi been? That's what you meant to start it with. Okay. And you go, sound, thanks. Just come here. Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 0. But how was your holiday?
I'll tell you what, if you put it back on the two shot and the overexposed legs here, you wouldn't think any of us have been away, would you? White legs, they're not that white in real life, I don't think, this time around. My holiday was very good. It seems like a long time ago now. Like it was a long time ago. But the boys didn't have a holiday at the weekend. Did the Aston Villa might have, Paul? They were shocking. Yeah. Because we were going into the game there and you're thinking to yourself here, Aston Villa play with a high line, but they wouldn't against Liverpool. Like, we've basically got the best quarterback in Trent Alexander-Arnold in football, and they're not going to play a ridiculously high line. There was a point, even when they were 1-0 down, where their line was set on the halfway line. I'm just thinking to myself, this is stupid, lads. And they didn't seem to change it. They dropped back a bit second half, but it was crazy.
I had two people walk up to me at the end of the game on the cop and say, the exact words, I expected more from Villa there. And I think the same, Dan. I don't know. I mean, look, they played Conference League qualifier the day, like 2 days before the thing, which is why it's on the Sunday and why it wasn't televised for those of you in people and go, what? Why? And they did rotate heavily for that game, but most of their players were involved in some way, shape or form. They didn't look at it, but also I guess it's one of those, is like, were Villa crap or were Liverpool really good? Klopp seemed to think Liverpool were just very good at controlling the game.
Yeah, and there's definitely elements of that 100%, and I feel like we had to be with the 11 that we picked without that DM in there. We had to control proceedings from the outset, and we very much did that. We didn't give Villa a sniff at any point, really, but to come back on Chris's point, I was amazed by their tactics, because I've always associated Emery with being very savvy, being he set up his teams to negate and nullify what the opposition are going to do. So to come to Anfield and play with that higher line was very naive from them, quite frankly. And I was quite surprised by that, because I always felt like Emery gives us tough games. He always has done when he was at Villarreal, Arsenal beforehand. It felt like it was going to be a difficult afternoon, but it just wasn't. Villa just played right into our hands and just said, oh, you've got a really quick lad and a lad who can ping passes from left, right and centre. Go on then, enjoy that. And it was just fun in the sun, essentially, for the Reds. It was a cruise, which I did not expect in one way, shape or form.
I wonder if it's a bit like anyone that had this on a computer game. I had it with one of the Street Fighter games, and I play on me and I think, I'm really good at this. And you play someone who is really good. And do you think it's a bit like, Chloe, they played Hibernian, and he's like, well, I've cracked this here. European football, we are ready to dominate, and then they've gone to Liverpool and got, oh no, this is a much higher standard, because they just weren't on Liverpool's level at the weekend.
They weren't at Liverpool's level, but Liverpool also didn't let them play their style of football. Liverpool implemented their game plan on the pitch. We recycled the ball, we kept the ball well. The switches of play to Luis Diaz from Trent was brilliant. The triangles down the right hand side, the 1-2 touches, the give and goes. I just thought Liverpool were absolutely brilliant. And Aston Villa had chances here and there. I think Diaby had a couple. Alisson Becker makes a boss save from a header in the second half. But Liverpool didn't let them play how they wanted to play. Even when they did get on the ball, I think John McGinn blazes one over the bar. And I was surprised by it. And at half-time, I remember saying to the people around me, expect them to get better, because they've got to come out and come after us now. Expect them to go into a different gear. And the second half, they had maybe a 5-minute spell at the very beginning, and then it was all Liverpool again. And it was very much like, you've had your little 5-minute period, now the big boys are going to take control again. And Liverpool just controlled the game. I thought the midfield was excellent. Our centre-backs winning the ball high up the pitch, stepping in, Joe Gomez and Joel Matip. It was their ball every time. They'd just step in on the strikers. I thought overall we were absolutely superb. Aston Villa weren't at the best, but that is still a great side with a great manager with some really good players. And Liverpool just took the mick out of them. Didn't even get out of second gear.
You touched on it earlier, Chris. It was just a wonderful afternoon of footy. You know, the weather was great. The spirits were up. You know, it was just. It felt very familiar. I didn't get that feeling a lot last season. Every time you felt like Liverpool were getting a grip on it, it would all sort of crumble away. I think a combination factor of the Newcastle result last week, which really sort of seemed to rebirth hope in people, but then to go and follow it up, because this was such a banana skin to be a bit of a cliche on that, but you know, the last game before the international break, you've got all that kind of positivity behind you. I think a team that's just challenging for top four, maybe it makes a bit of a hash of that or finds a way to conspire to do it, but as it was, again, everyone bounced into Anfield. Liverpool put the performance in, and everyone bounced out of Anfield.
Yeah, and the early goal helped us again, didn't it? You know, that's something to build on. And listen, I've got to go back to the tactics, because I talked about the high line and stuff, but I'm okay. Anyone can play a high line, but you've got to put pressure on our back line. And there was no pressure on our back line, so their team was probably scrunched into about 20 yards of the pitch, and no one's pressuring Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, how many times did he play an unbelievable ball over the top for somebody to run onto? Like, it was so easy. And I think the Liverpool players must have been looking around kind of going, what are they doing? Like, is this rope-a-dope? Yeah. Like, how's this going to work? You're going to be 3-0 down soon. And it was baffling to me.
I thought I just didn't expect it from Villa, if I'm being honest. I thought they were going to come, be compact, not leave much space in behind. That's why I thought, like, the decision to start Darwin was a bit... I understood it from, like, a morale perspective. I thought he deserved to play in the side, but I thought Villa's not going to be the game. Villa at Anfield is not going to be the game for us here. But it's mad. I was trying to pick your brain on this, Chris, because obviously I know you do the deep dives. Matt today were keen to stress Trent's positioning, and they keen to stress the defensive element of it, like moving Matip more
like
right
Matip and Trent Alexander-Arnold were so much better in transition than Konate and Trent Alexander-Arnold, for me anyway. The two of them knew what the other one was doing, and I've always felt so far this season that there's still a lot of communication between Konate and Trent, and a lot of pointing is where they're supposed to be. But I don't know, I didn't watch the match of the day analysis. I try not to, because I think it clouds your own sometimes when you're doing this. So for me, Trent was very much central. He played that, you know, box midfield role, but he was 10 yards deeper.
Yeah.
He was in the back line. He was in the right centre back position for me, and Matip was out in the right back position. And there was times when obviously they switched that, but Trent was just loving it. He was like, well, no one's coming to pressure me. I don't need to step up into the midfield. I'm just going to stand here and ping balls around. And him just being 10-15 yards closer to the left hand side of the pitch made the percentages much better for the switch to Diaz.
Yeah.
And it's because 15 yards on a 70 yards ball makes a massive difference, you know what I mean? So in playing that ball from right back, it's not quite as pinpoint as playing it from where he was playing it. And the fact that he could pick out anybody at any point, left or right, and the way that he was sort of, you know, the way he sort of dug out the cross for Matip. Like, it's not a normal technique. That was the one for Salah over the top. If you look at that one closely, he digs that ball out to sort of, like, a 9-9 in the golf, to put a little bit of backspin on it, to just slow it down a little bit for him. And he was doing everything outside of the boot, like Chloe was saying before, cross-field passes. I just felt like Matip understood more where Trent was going to be, and we were already in the right place. Didn't have to react.
It also felt a bit, Dan, like in putting Trent there, it encouraged, it probably upset what their pressing plan as well, because right, they've got to press our guys, but they're like, oh, we'll press a centre half, but hang on a second, have they got enough bodies to press that many guys in our back line and not leave holes elsewhere? So it felt like they got caught between two stools, which benefited us.
Oh, absolutely did. Yeah, whatever their game plan was, they weren't able to execute it because of what we did. Yeah. And Jurgen Klopp deserves a hell of a lot of credit for that, obviously, because when the 11 came out, I was surprised not to see Endo in there, being dead honest, because like you, I think I thought Aston Villa would sit deep, it would be a more difficult game than as it panned out, but the fact he went with the 3 technical lads in midfield just meant we absolutely dictated play. But you're right, Villa probably felt like we need to go and get closer to Trent, but all of a sudden if we do that, we're leaving McAllister, Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones loads of room to do their stuff. It's a catch-22 for them, and ultimately I don't think they had enough about them, whether in quality or tactical nous, whatever it was, to live with us that day. And that's credit to what we were able to do and the fact we could dictate terms. I think you're right, the early goal meant we was cruise control from that point on, because not only were we dominating possession and dominating the sort of the balance of the game, but we were 1-0 up by that point as well, and all the pressures alleviated. Liverpool last season, we were very guilty a lot of the time of starting games horrendously. It was the opposite this time around. From minute one, we were at it, we were on it. The quality was there, the energy was there, the pressing was there. They just could not live with us, and that's testament to how we've started the season, because Aston Villa are no mugs. We've seen that already in glimpses this time around. We've seen it definitely the back end of last year. So if we can do that to them, that's a big statement from us. I asked for a statement performance and victory, and I think this was both.
Yeah, just to pick out some individual performances, Chloe, I touched upon it already, but it's a big call to start Nunez. I think, as mentioned, it is and it isn't, because look, he's just phenomenal against Newcastle, and if you're going to do that and you're going to build the confidence of a centre forward, then no problems with carrying on with that. I wasn't certain it was the right decision in the build-up. What were your thoughts, and do you think it was vindicated?
Yeah, I said straight away after Newcastle, he needs to start against Villa, because it's mad, because during the game you're watching him and not everything goes well for him. I think there's one where he's completely through it on goal and his touch somehow ends up at Salah, and you're like, oh my God, just take a nice touch, finish it, it's a goal. And it's almost like when he has too long to think about it, he goes all over the place, and where it's just instinct, that those 2 Newcastle goals are world-class finishes, and he has no other option. He has to shoot. There's no one there with him. There's not enough time to think about it, and he buries them. And I thought he deserved it, and look, he enjoyed himself. Did he get a goal? No, it was a cash own goal. I don't care what George said over the mic. But Darwin Nunez ran away as if he'd scored it. He was buzzing for himself, and I love that. He caused chaos constantly in behind. Him and Salah, brilliant link up. Szoboszlai as well. Trent ball over the top to him. It constantly felt like he was causing the space for the likes of Szoboszlai to run into, because he was pulling those defenders by, they were trying to do the high line, but once Darwin Nunez ran off, and you had Trent on the ball running up the pitch, players didn't know whether to go or to stay, and it left a lot of space, in the middle of the park, in between the lines for other players. And look, he doesn't get the goal, but he gets an assist for Salah. He causes enough chaos, and I enjoyed his overall performance. And I thought when we actually brought the subs on, we got worse. I really do. I thought I was loving the energy of the front 3, and then Gakpo, Jota come on, and yet they've only got 15 minutes or so. But I thought our intensity dropped a little bit. We weren't as quick on the ball.
It was half an hour, and when the first like triple sub comes, I agree. By the way, I'll stick with you in a second on that, club, because I don't think Gakpo had a good game when he came on. I think he's not had a great start to the season either, and that's a really interesting thing, because Nunez has basically played his way into the side there. The one thing that Nunez has got going for him at the moment is that he's not embarrassed to make an idiot of himself. There was a couple of times where he's wild into press, and he got like sent for the echo, and he's flying on the floor, and then he gets up again, and then he's happy to go again. He looks like he's actually having fun on the pitch, which I think will help him immensely. 100%,
and even the one back post at Cop End, and he misses it should just be a goal. He should just put it in the back of the net, and he kicks but also heads, and it's like choose one or the other.
He reaches for his right foot, I think, doesn't need to kind of like outside of the boot, knock it in, and then as he's about to do it, he realises it's too high and ducks and stuff. It's a weird one, but at least he's laughing.
Him and Salah were laughing, and he was like saying to Salah, sorry, because Salah outside of the foot, unbelievable pass, and he's like so sorry about that. But the way, he signalled the crowd after his goal, he puts his hand, he's loving life at the moment, and if he's, got the most confidence, you keep playing him. I don't think, like you mentioned, Gakpo has done enough. I thought Chelsea first 30 minutes, he was brilliant, and I think he's been good in roles. But Darwin Nunez just offers you something different, and he caused chaos the other day. Like you mentioned, maybe not always winning the ball high up the pitch, but his intensity was there. The press from that right-hand side was ridiculous. The amount of times we won the ball off Luca Digne was ridiculous. And it's nice to see footballers just enjoying themselves in the sun.
Yeah, the Gakpo stuff's interesting. I think you guys were doing it on the podcast last week about how, it might have even Danny said it, like the Gakpo feels like Klopp's man. I'm not sure he's going to be that for much longer if he doesn't, you know what I mean, if he doesn't put in a big game for us. And look, long season, early doors, great to have the different rotational options. I was hoping when we made those 60-minute changes that we were going to put our foot on the throat and really go for like a 4-5, 6-0 kind of situation, but as close as Chris, it just didn't quite develop that way.
No, it was... can you remind me of those 3 subs again?
Jota, Harvey Elliott and Cody Gakpo for Diaz, Nunez and
Jones, was it?
Jones.
Yeah, so I thought the Jones one was what really kind of messed up the whole thing for me. Obviously, there's a different dynamic with the forward players, and if you were to ask me first 60 minutes who were the most influential midfielders, well, I would have been telling you that it was McAllister and Szoboszlai, and then probably Jones maybe third in the pecking order. But the balance when Jones left and Elliott came in is what I think actually unbalanced us. Because there was times during that first 60 where Szoboszlai and Jones just switched for 15 minutes.
All the time.
And and whatever we were doing was going through Szoboszlai's side. Whether he was on the right, everything was going down there. When he moved to the left, everything started going down the left-hand side. But Jones added that balance, like Wijnaldum used to add balance to our midfield in the past. And so for me, it was that substitution, the Elliott for Jones one, that really messed things up a little bit. And I think Jones had a really good game, and probably one where he will have gone under the radar for everybody, but his influence actually was key to everything that we did.
Yeah, it's just a trick. I thought Jota was really good when he came on, actually, Dan. You know, he's certainly doing very Jota-like things. He's a killer. He wants to get into the 18-yard box. He wants to take it on. He wants to get you in uncomfortable situations. But again, the Gakpo stuff, it just, I don't know, it's odd. It's almost like the peril of having a guy who's a Swiss Army knife. Of at the moment, he's just not quite flourished in anything. I say it's very early doors, but in terms of it, I'm thankful that Nunez is up and running, because it's very simple to understand how to get Darwin Nunez playing for us. Gakpo's a little bit more complex, I guess.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it? That's the beauty of having all these attacking options and these different weapons come from the bench. If one of them isn't quite firing on all cylinders, that's when you want the other one to be at it and to be confident and to want minutes. And Darwin Nunez at the minute is that guy, like he just is. Doesn't get his goal at the weekend, of course, but I actually think it's one of his better all-round performances for Liverpool, because he offered a lot of the stuff that we're critical of him for. He often presses, but very much on his own. This time it felt a bit more synchronised. It felt like he was doing it as part of the plan. I think some of his link-up was slightly better. Obviously, he gets arguably 2 assists, given the fact he hit the post for one. So I actually think his all-round game, usually it's like he's going to get moments, he's going to get chances because he's that chance magnet. He might put 1 or 2 away and he's just chaos. This felt like a better all-round game from him, so that's a real big plus. But on Gakpo, you're right. I still think for me, he remains very much Klopp's favourite. I think he just is. I think in most scenarios, most games, he would be the man he'd go to. He's his go-to guy. He'd turn to him in most situations. But I think the fact he's been out of position a few games and it hasn't really worked for him so far this season is kind of detrimental to the form that he's in now. He's probably not quite feeling himself. Darwin Nunez is feeling himself right now. Like Szoboszlai the same, because of what he's done as well. But Gakpo is probably a little bit like a bit of a slow start to the season. But I have zero doubt in my mind that that'll come full circle and he'll be the main man in a few weeks, quite possibly.
But I think they're going to switch them around. I think, you know, we're going to see Gakpo in the 9, we're going to see Nunez in the 9. I think Klopp called it perfectly. He knew that Aston Villa played the high line, so he played Darwin Nunez about it to get in behind it, and he was absolutely superb. But him and Salah started towards the back end of last season to have an understanding in those sort of 20-minute cameos from Nunez at the back end. That was there for all to see. It looks like Salah has become the creator in that relationship and settled into that role a little bit more. Whereas I think when he's with Gakpo, he still feels the need to go and be the goal scorer. Whereas with Nunez, he can settle in and stuff. So I think those two have played really well together. Now, we're 15 games unbeaten. So, you know, that's a hell of a thing. And when we're talking about the confidence of this side now, I think it was a little difficult at the beginning of the year for us because of obviously a tough game against Chelsea where nothing really went to plan for us tactically and stuff like that. And you pick up this couple of red cards, but this belief's been bubbling under. hasn't it? And then now the lads who were there at the back end of last season, 15 games unbeaten. And the new lads are settling in. And the midfield's starting to dominate. And we've got this conductor in the middle of the park called Alexis McAllister, who everyone's been saying, you know, Gerrard and Szoboszlai, and that name's been linked a lot, but like Xabi Alonso, McAllister is where my head's at the moment. Like that first touch gives him 3 yards of space, and he's never under pressure. He just seems to take his time.
It was a really interesting decision to start him in the 6. And again, guys might be going, well, why is Endo not playing? We bought this, you know, proper number 6, as it were, and we never need
game for it.
Yeah, exactly.
With hindsight.
Exactly. Yeah. It just never felt. Again, my understanding of Villa would be they would be very defensively resolute. So I just didn't feel like we needed a number 6 in that. And clearly Klopp went with that. Let's put your best foot forward. Let's get good ball players on the team, and let's actually play footy against Villa. Let's out football them. And you're right, McAllister. It's interesting because I still think his best position is going to be in one of the more advanced states for us. But if he's that good as our second choice, almost 6, it goes back to the Nunez Gakpo thing. There's going to be more horses for courses. I think we were very one-paced at the start of last year. And look, because of injuries and a variety of other reasons, lack of reinforcements, etc. But it does feel like we're going to have 3 or 4 completely different ways to beat you. Similar broadly, you know, if you looked at it from space, it would look very, very similar. But actually, when you get into the myopic detail of it, a team that's got Darwin Nunez up front and McAllister in midfield is going to look very different to Endo and Gakpo, for example. And it gives them, to say McAllister can come in and do that. That's a good game to come into that and actually dominate it. I was well impressed, very well impressed. Joe Gomez, Chris,
bosh. He's so much better on the left than the right at the centre backs for me. Like him and Robbo, I think really helped to set the tempo for us defensively in the game. I thought the two of them have been brilliant. You know, I've been hypercritical of Andy Robertson over the course of, since we changed formation, of the course of these 15 games, probably across 2 seasons now. But if Andy Robertson doesn't start defending the way that he started that game, I don't think it's anywhere near as easy. He seemed to sort of not go forwards anywhere near as much for me. I think he got a real good balance of what he was doing. There was that one where he wins the ball, and then he plays that beautiful ball in, a 1-2 maybe, then a ball inside to Nunez. And Nunez looks a bit Gakpo-like first time touching to Diaz and stuff. That was the only time I really remember Robbo bombing on in the middle of the game. And I might be wrong there, he might have done it a couple more times, but I just felt him and back onto Joe Gomez. Like, Joe just did everything right. He slips, he has a mistake. I'm not even bothered about that because everything else that he did, it was just there. There was 2 men on him and he was making himself a nuisance. Like, they were attacking him over the top. He was dealing with it. He just seemed really calm and really focused. Like, I know what I've got to do here today and I'm going to do it.
I've said this for a couple of years, Chloe. I think he's got the Van Dijk attributes, not the height and not the overall presence, but he is very calm in possession. He's a cool character. He's got the pace as well. But what I liked about him was it was like he was doing his Virgil van Dijk impression, but as a lad who spent a lot of time being the covering defender, who knows he needs to be proactive and he needs to be committed. He doesn't like casual his way through a football match trying to show he's Van Dijk. It was Gomez doing the Van Dijk role, and I think it suited him really well.
He was absolutely phenomenal. Every single time that ball went anywhere near him, he was stepping in on it. That Ollie Watkins must have hated our 2 centre-backs, because I don't know how many touches he had, but I'm betting it wasn't a lot, because every time the ball was trying to be held up to Ollie Watkins and they were trying to drag themselves up the pitch, Joe Gomez would just take 4 or 5 strides, step in, take the ball and get off. And the thing I liked about it most was how calm and collected he was. He'd win a ball, set it, and then go back into his position. He was always calm on the ball. There was no need to, you know, when I think about Virgil van Dijk, I also think about how good he is at switching a ball to Mo Salah and getting us out. And Joe Gomez was doing it, but he was doing it to Trent, or he was doing it to Szoboszlai on the right-hand side. He was absolutely brilliant, and look, he's had some criticism, and rightfully so. He's not being, you know, at the heights that he was the season we won the Champions League. But you can see just how good he is when he's on his game. I'm not classing the slip as a mistake. He slipped over. So there's not much I can do about that. But throughout the entire game, I thought beforehand there was loads of people worried about it. They were talking about the fact that it was Joe Gomez and Matip at the back.
And that actually led into the Endo phase as well, let's not forget.
Yeah, and then as soon as the game started and we were on it and we were just so confident in what we were doing, you thought, I fucking love this duo here. Like, I'm absolutely living for it. Alisson Becker didn't have much to do, but the confidence that back four gave me, back five including Alisson, I mean, Villa were crap, okay, but also, you know,
but if they'd not been, had they been standing off, it would have been a different story.
Maybe, yeah. And also, that's the other thing. If you actually look at the mistakes we gave away against Newcastle, press us, and we will make the mistakes for you. And it helped that we didn't really have that. But yeah, I thought him and Joel Matip was brilliant. And also, just on Joel Matip, I've always been worried about Joel Matip in that right-hand side role because I've always thought to myself, well, I don't want him going on his runs again. But you know what? He did it, and I absolutely loved every time. He went on a run in the opponent's half and just set it off and got off again.
I just think we've got this thing with football analysis, and I think it's exacerbated during the transfer window, Dan, because everything exists in possibility that you can always go and get better. Yeah, you know, as though we play Man City every week, as though we play Real Madrid every week, and every week you've got to have 11 absolute worldies at the peak of their powers, putting in world-class performances, and then you've got to have 5 unbelievable best-in-the-world players to bring into the pitch. I mean, look, we've had players who there's been times where we've looked at our 11 and gone, I think he's world-class. But a lot of that is formed by the coaching, it's formed by the system, it's formed by the overall approach to the team, and I think this idea of Gomez is crap and Matip is crap, I've never really bought into it. I think they've got sketchy injury records, which is going to be the concern with having to rely upon them if we've got, you know, if we don't get, if Van Dijk gets any longer ban, if Konate isn't back, but you know, for soon after the international break. But Joel Matip's class, and he's been class for ages, and Joe Gomez has got some of the most wild negative treatment. His head went big time at times, particularly last season. But he's still young for a centre-half. He's got so many of the attributes required, and he's so well integrated into the side. I'm not saying he'll ever be. The injuries might have robbed him of the chance to be one of the truly great centre-halves. But I contend this all the time. Man City play Nathan Ake. Like, Man City are the best, you know, they're currently the best team on the planet by a mile, and Nathan Ake still gets a regular game for them. You don't need to be exceptional, you just need to be able to perform to the level regularly, and if they can perform like they played at the weekend, then sound.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, it was a very mature performance from Joe Gomez, and that's not something we've been able to say very often, to be honest. And you're right in as much as I think he's got all the attributes, he's got the skill set, and he's proven he's got the ability to do it at the very highest levels, no two ways about that. And the Nathan Ake one's interesting because you're right. I think if both of them footballers are at their best, sort of injury-free, you'd probably have Joe Gomez over Nathan Ake, but it's just not worked out that way because of the horrific injury record that he's unfortunately suffered. But I will say, like, the criticism and the concern around Gomez is warranted. It is justified because last season, that Napoli game was just a horror game from him. And unfortunately, we've seen too many of them. Matip less so. There was times towards the back end last season, I did have question marks about Joel Matip, but he seems to have sort of put that behind him, and he's still capable of producing like he did on the weekend. But I was so pleased for and so impressed with Joe Gomez on Sunday, because it was a performance that was more sort of akin to the old Joe Gomez and what we expect from him, because he was calm, he was composed. And what was probably the most important moment for me from it all was that mistake. Because previously Joe Gomez would have made that mistake and crumbled, and you'd have seen a much worse Joe Gomez for the next hour or so. But he didn't. He just brushed it off and went, okay, shit happens. He's missed a chance. We'll move on. And he carries on at centre-back brilliantly, and then he shifts over to right-back later on. He's still sound there. That was massive for me.
I think that's a huge point there, because you're dead right. Because we saw this, like Napoli last season was a great example of that. He just went. He made a mistake, and then he made another mistake, and another mistake. And it's like, there's your game done. He reminded me last season of, like, all the players that played for Arsenal in the final, like, eight years of Arsene Wenger's time, who were all just mentally destroyed from all the pressure being on them and the fans turning them and all that kind of stuff. So, like, Chloe, that point that Dan makes there, that could have been like the end of Joe Gomez's game, and probably last season it would have been. So yeah, huge credit to him. It's huge credit to him. You know, it's a credit to him that he does manage to not just keep a level head, but to actually continue to have and get better as the game wore on from that mistake.
Yeah, I also think it helped that the fact that Robertson had such a boss game next to him as well. He was in a solid back four, a stable back four, and he also probably you know, I think it's Jürgen after the Newcastle game where he goes up to him and he looks made up with him. And to have that confidence and positivity around you, I'm pretty sure going off that pitch on Sunday, everyone's turned around and go, used to at centre-halves were absolutely phenomenal. I bet, you know, everyone's talking about how good Joe Gomez was, giving him the plaudits he deserved. Inside the ground, even when that happened, I think Anfield wasn't as nervous. We weren't on the backs of the players. It just seemed like our lad, he did well to recover the ball first of all, has a little bit of a problem, slips a little bit, and they're in, but they missed the chance. And it felt like Anfield was calm whenever Joe Gomez and Joel Matip had the ball, and that really helped them. And like you mentioned there, he went to right back, thought he was brilliant at right back as well. Kwanzaa as well, boss when he came on. That kid, he's a youngster and he plays with all the maturity in the world. Balls came down to him and you expect people to just panic. Head that no, just brings it down, touch, slots it back to Robertson. Go on, lad, you go for a run.
The Gomez thing, I just finally for me on Joe really more than anything is like you come into the game when Van Dijk gets a red card and you don't have any time to think about it.
Yeah.
You've had a week knowing that you're going to play centre half this time around and you react so well again. But I think I go back to that Endo decision and not playing a DM. That tells me that my manager's got confidence in me. That what do you mean he's not playing a DM in front of me? Oh, he believes in me and Joel Matip in here and all that type of stuff. So don't know whether it was head games as well there or if Klopp even thought about it a little bit. But regardless, I do think that might have helped his mindset going into the game.
Yeah, look, and it speaks to the unity of the squad. I was talking to you guys about this afterwards. Szoboszlai is very good at like just geeing people on the pitch, and Robertson was doing it as well. So that mistake happened, and actually in the resulting like breakdown of it when the ball goes out of play, they both go over to him, and it's not like what are you doing? And honestly, it's one of those. I don't want to say like, oh, Van Dijk will kick off and whatever. He might do, he might not. I haven't got any examples to point to. So that's just
he likes to stare.
He does. You know, it's like withering glance. It's the Gerrard leadership model. But everyone was around. There was a real unity to the whole thing of like, don't worry about it. We've got you, mate. Shit happens. Everyone falls over. You did the good part, the hard part right. He got there, he intercepted it, and then he lost his balance. It's one of those things. Don't let it bother you. You've not fell over because you're rubbish. You fell over because biology and gravity. Sometimes those situations fall to all of us. But yeah, the way everyone pulled together, I thought it was excellent.
The other thing on it is, I've always thought Joe Gomez, you can't just you need to run a run of games to really be at his best, and he hasn't had that. He's came in against Newcastle, putting a decent performance there, and this game, you know, it's something for him to build on, because you would usually be worried with just lobbing him in, you know, no Virgil, he's going to have to come in out of nowhere. He's not really played much, and when he has played, he's played at right back usually. He's, you know, being the sub for Trent. So the fact that, you know, last season I'd been absolutely nervous for him to just drop into any situation, but now it's a case of this is your time to go and grab that right centre-back spot and let's go and get it.
Well, there's a number of these things that happen during careers, and I think there's something to it being Villa, who have been very heavily linked with Gomez in the last year or so, and there's things where you get your opportunity and you go, right, are you a Liverpool player or are you an Aston Villa player? And this is not meant as a huge slight on Villa, but Liverpool fans watching will know what I mean. Virgil van Dijk is not going to become a better centre-half than he's been in his career now at this point. So this is... If you're going to say, I'm going to be the guy, the long-term replacement for Van Dijk, that was a stupid thing to even think about 2 years ago or even a year ago or whatever. Whereas there's a point now where they're probably having conversations with Gomez and saying, well, look, Van Dijk's not going to play 50 games this year. You're going to be getting your game in the back line. You're going to need to be ready when that takes that. And if you're not ready and you can't get your head on straight, mate, well, there you go. You'll be playing for Aston Villa. You're good enough to go and play in the Premier League, absolutely. But these are your opportunities, so just go and grab them. And the Klopp's very keen to stress, and always is. That's fun. That's not scary. If you're scared about having your opportunity, then you're not an elite level footballer. You should be reveling in the chance to go out in a pressure environment when everyone's looking at you and thinking, "Oh God, is he going to make a mistake or whatever?" That's when you shine. That's how you sort the wheat from the chaff. So very impressed. Skip to my Lou with the comment on the YouTube says, Robbo was massive. The whole backline came to play. Genuinely happy for Joey. You can tell mentally the injuries were in his head last season. I think is interesting. Virgil here saying Gomez looks more confident this season. However, he still needs to be more positionally aware, and Tim Maslin, I think Chris pointed this out as well, but says, apart from when Gomez slipped and nearly gifted a Villa goal, yeah, I agree. And just one more on the general, from Virgil on the general cover. Quanta's not bad either. The Europa League will be a great platform for him, and also Baccetic and Doak. Also, actually, Nick Black says, that's a very...
Doak? You mean Doak?
Ben Doak.
Ben Doak.
Come on now, Paul.
Get with it, lads.
What?
He's come out this week and said it's Doak.
Not on it. Nope.
Just no. Just a flat no.
No. Nick Black says there's a very, very good centre-back in Gomez.
I thought there was a chance we were going to get in there for a second.
He looked at us all to see if anyone was smiling.
Nick Black says there's a very, very good centre-back in Gomez, and we've seen it.
Yeah.
If he stops getting injured, he'll become great. Yeah, cool. And look, at this point, if he doesn't become great, fine. But what Liverpool need is more lads who are just capable of coming and playing games. Let's stop worrying about who's going to be a star or whatever. Stars will just naturally develop. What Liverpool need to get back to being is an 11 that all pulls in the right direction, because they weren't last season. They were a fucking shambles. It was like they weren't. When Robbo was coming out and go, well, you meant to cover for your mates. And like, hint, nudge, nudge, me mates. Well, I'm running around like a blue arse fly. Yeah, so yeah, encouraging. Very, very encouraging from Joe Gomez, to say the very least. Yeah, that's that for the Villa game. Obviously, plenty more to discuss from it. We will have been covered.
Szoboszlai,
man.
I'm not done. Don't worry.
Okay.
Whoa.
Panic
We're gonna be
stations there.
talking-
Like, I want to talk about Szoboszlai for like a good 15 minutes.
I haven't done for like half an hour, so I'm
We are
Taking it over here, like...
discussing Dominik Szoboszlai in part 2, and we discussed the end of the transfer window and the
Goodness.
players that we've brought in. Don't worry about it. But if you want more
Probably
from
should
that
have checked the
game,
agenda, shouldn't we, the three of us?
should have checked the Avengers. Yes, yeah. Anyway, if you want more analysis from this, check out the Final Word show. My dad was on that one as well. A lot of people saying like, "Where's your dad? Where's your dad?" He was on the Final Word on Redmen Plus, so go and check that out with Steve and with Ian Young as well. So yeah, anyway, a short break. When we return, we will be discussing Dominik Szoboszlai, Alexis McAllister, Endo, Gravenberch, Mo Salah, and the closing of the transfer window. Hey, what's happening? Our brand new book, Bobby Firmino, Best in the World, is available to order right now. There is a normal edition and an author-signed edition on redmenmerch.com. Fill your boots with incredible stories of a Kop icon, a season-by-season guide to Bobby Firmino's time on Merseyside with unique and incredible photographs from the archive, stats, unique artwork by brilliant Liverpool artists, features, quotes, and a whole lot more beside. If you are a Bobby Firmino fan, or someone in your life is a huge Bobby Firmino fan, it is the perfect gift for you or for them. It is A4 size, premium format, and very limited edition. Get yours right now by heading to redmenmerch.com. Hey, we're back. Sorry, we've just seen our new Christmas jumper for this year. We've just seen a little sneak preview and everyone was like, it's yours on the floor behind. Too early to show you guys, but
it's too hot.
Oh my God, it's nearly Crimbo, can't wait.
Yeah, I did see my first Christmas at the hotel I stayed at the weekend. Had like a little table saying "book now for Christmas" with a little Santa.
Should then just left it on.
I nearly cleared it. Fucking scattered the contents. You're doing your pricks. It's fucking September. Right.
Oh look, Steve's in the chat.
He's got his burner account there. Right, Sal, let's do transfers. So yeah, the transfer window is shut. Huge sigh of relief.
I mean, sigh of relief.
It's shut
for us, but it's not shut for fucking Saudi Arabia.
Well, let's go. Let's do that. Let's do that first and foremost, then, Chloe. Yeah, my general take on this is it's a bit like having a nuclear reactor open. The opening of the transfer window is radioactive. And maybe at first it just warms you up. And you're like, oh, this feels all right. They're a bit tingly. And then by the end, when like your fingers and toes are falling off, you really wish you hadn't opened anything at all. Yes, let's do Salah, Chloe. It's going to rumble on. Apparently, the transfer window. I'm going off Chris, who's going off Sky Sports. So yeah, I've not.
It's either Thursday or sometime in the future.
Yeah,
that's Thursday. All we know.
It's Thursday until they decide. Until the people who own the league decide that we'll just open it again to sign Salah. Apparently, Thursday is the closing of the Saudi Pro League transfer window, which means we've got a few more days left of them presumably pecking away at Liverpool's heads over this one. It threatened to derail, I think, the good vibes toward the back end of the window. Obviously, Gravenberch coming in great. We'll talk about him in a minute. But yeah, the Salah stuff it'll loom until the window shuts at least.
Yeah, it will. Now, I've sat here for a good several days now saying it's never happening. You're not taking him. But every single day that it goes on and that transfer window is still open, I still get worried because it just takes an outrageous bid for them, for Liverpool to sit there and say, well, we can't turn that down because we won't get that in a year's time. And that is my worry. If they just don't come to us with another bid, that'd be great. But the numbers floating about, once it's 200 mil, Liverpool, I'm not saying they should, but Liverpool might look at it. And it also just disrupts everything. I mean, the entire fan base is on its knees. They just keep going, even though Liverpool have said outright, no, it's not happening. They had all the time in the summer to do this. If you would have put 200 mil on the table down before Jordan Henderson and Fabinho had left Liverpool would have looked at that and Liverpool would have had a decision to make. But you've came to us in the dead end of a transfer window on transfer deadlines. When the Doc, who we were looking at years ago, has gone to one of our rivals and title challengers over there. There's no other right wingers in the world that could compare ever to Salah at this moment. And it just tries to cause disruption. But hopefully, he'll stay at Liverpool. We've got through the first hurdle. There might be a couple more to come. Let's hope there's not. But it was boss seeing him, just get on with life and score as well. It's great to see that.
I just think we shouldn't have rotated him in for any days off until Friday. To be honest, when you went to London last week or whatever, and it's like, I know you're having a great time looking at all the Egyptian relics in the museum and stuff. Like, what are you doing in London, really, lads? You know what I mean? Like, no days off for Mo, no international duty, no nothing.
It was like when Ross booked all those dentist trips and then basically told us he got a new job. It was like, brilliant. Hi Ross. You're right. I think it's one of those where someone just going like, nick all his clothes or something, so he's only got Liverpool gear. You know what I mean? He's got no excuse. He can't go anywhere. He can't leave the house for a bit. It's the obvious question, and I think this is what caused the upset, because obviously, Dan, because you guys were at the coalface on deadline day, I was doing a 3-4 hour drive, and I was getting the updates via WhatsApp for you guys, but it was the fee thing that made it complicated, because we know that money talks. And there's going to come a point, and we know how Liverpool are structured in terms of, like, they do need to sell to buy. Every football club pretty much needs to do that, by the way. But I think what happened was they went 100 million to 150 million, and then it was 150 million, and then there was rumours of 175 million. And I think the problem was a lot of people went, if it gets to 200, I'm saying but then it was like,
it would never get there.
Yeah. Well, what if there was 200? Oh, well, I've not.
300!
Yeah.
Got to start with a 4.
And that's it. There's a fear that Liverpool, because it was very unequivocal. All the Northwest journalists were saying, Liverpool have turned this down. They consider the matter closed, and they're like, well, the Saudis don't consider this closed anyway. Shape or form. They're gonna continue to bell. They're gonna continue bell Salah's agent, lads. Let's see if we can put another 20 million on. I think Sky Sports milked it because
you can say that again.
Yeah, because it was the only remotely interesting thing happening on the day, which then exacerbates the fear and blah blah blah. Yeah. It was more. There was more. I think there was more made of it on the day. I'm not saying that Liverpool won't deal at some point, but I'm pleased that they didn't just get blinded by the figures, because it would have been very easy to take 150 million quid, because 150 million quid does a lot for a team like Liverpool. Yeah. So yeah, whoever was responsible for it, and I don't want to say it was who may or may not have been responsible for that. I don't know, what was your thought?
No, absolutely. What it was the biggest story in town, wasn't it, for deadline day, which is why mainstream media ran with it and ran with it and ran with it again. But Liverpool made...
How many ex-players can we get their opinions?
Exactly, yeah. If I see what Paul Merson thinks about Mohamed Salah leaving Liverpool again, it'll be too many times, because my word, who's that?
Normally they repeat like every 30 minutes or so. I mean, we were repeating every 5 minutes about the Salah story.
Chef getting encouragement from somewhere.
Where are they getting the encouragement from? Is it FSG?
We don't know where they're getting the
encouragement from. Or is it Salah's camp themselves?
I watched that Merson thing live, and he went through the whole interview with Merson, was like, nah, he's too good. Yeah, I want Liverpool to blah, blah. And then at the end, he went, so do you think he'll go? And he went, I think he will, It's like, nothing you've just said fed into that. He obviously just went, what's going to get me more on
time?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it worked. It was everywhere. I went to the toilet down there and seen Paul Merson's face in the mirror. It was heavy, like, honest to God. But you know what? You're right. From a footballing perspective, obviously, I've had time to sort of weigh it up and sort of assess the different options. From a footballing perspective, on deadline day, there was not a world whereby you can afford to let Mohamed Salah go. Of course there isn't. But from a business perspective, which is what our owners are often criticised for purely being businessmen, which is what they are, of course, they're not bothered about football or soccer, as they would call it. From a business perspective, there is a price point whereby you go, probably going to have to accept that. Yeah. And that felt like if it had have reached the 175, 200 millions, then that's when I would have been panicking. And obviously midway through the day, we knew about the hundreds of 150 rising. That did feel as though you quite easily just could reject that, because that's daft. It's a lot of money, of course it is. But at that point in the window, with no capabilities of replacing him with anybody, you just get more problems.
It's still normal money, though. And it's not. But you know what I mean? Like 100 to 150 million is not stupid money for Mohamed Salah.
I agree.
Casado fell over the ball ever since he's joined Chelsea, and he's 150.
No, but had it got to 200 later on in that day, I think we've got a serious problem on our hands at that point. I just do. I think at that point, FSG and them sort of people have to look at each other and go, because I know we had a conversation about sort of Champions League, and that was sort of the proviso of it. We'll keep Salah because that guarantees Champions League, essentially. But at that point, you go, well, we'll take the 200 million now and risk still getting the Champions League. You really double down on your cash then, don't you? Yeah. So I'm just glad, well, that decision never came about. It still might, of course, between now and Thursday, but up until this point, that question of do you take 200 hasn't arisen.
I have seen a lot of the Caicedo stuff was a PR move. Horseshit. There's some guy chatting to me on holiday. He was going like, do you think it was a PR move? I was like, I'm sorry, you don't break the British transfer record and then not sign a player as a PR move unless you're looking for negative PR, you know what I mean, deliberately, which is mental.
This is not me bidding on something on eBay out of spite. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's another story for another day. Chris's eBay spite is the stuff of legend. But there is a degree of this, Chloe. That's a huge... The vast majority of this is a PR move, because they've been told, Liverpool have told them, we're not selling at any cause, but it just keeps the conversation going, because the biggest players in the world and all the European transfer markets now closed, so they're not likely to buy anyone who's really good for the bit, but letting everyone know, like going out with a flourish, maybe Liverpool do deal on him at a big amount of money, in which case you've got Salah, and if not, you've let the world know. And also, in the Billiton Newcastle game, happening to try and destabilise one of your, one of the biggest players on the planet ahead of him playing against your other team, was probably no bad thing. But there's a lot more at play than just the buying of Salah. There is just something to, you're telling the world that it's not a retirement league, even though in reality it is. It's you saw the size of that news.
Yeah, it is a case of they will just go and get the best players in the world, and they don't care how much it costs, and that is a worry for the rest of the leagues. The Premier League is deemed the best league in Europe. Well, here these are, and they're going to come to use. And look, Gabri Veiga is another person to look at. He's been deemed, one for the future, unbelievable prospect. Nearly went to Napoli. All of a sudden, is Saudi Arabia. We'll offer you an incredible amount of money. It is just the start of your career. You should be going to a team where you can be the main man. You should be able to play at the biggest heights. And he's gone to Saudi Arabia where he's not playing in the Champions League, which for me is the peak of football. And it just goes to show they do not care the stature of Liverpool Football Club. Like, it could seem actually quite, audacious to come over to Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, and turn around and say, nah, we're going to take your best player. It shows that they just don't care. They'll come after whoever they want. It's also feelers out for next season, because Salah will probably go then. I believe that. I think this is the last season that you'll see, Salah in Liverpool red. And look, a deal might be struck before Thursday for that to happen next summer. It might be a case. But yeah, I'm still going to worry till then, especially considering I was sat there with hardly any signal at all, and all I got was a message from Chris saying, I'm not going to lie to you, Chloe, I'm really worried about Salah leaving Liverpool. And here I am.
On purpose.
Here I am, absolutely freaking out beside a pool for you, and my entire family then, I was like, oh my God, and my entire family were going off the railings. So yeah, nice one to Chris for that. Really made my Monday unbelievable.
eBay spike.
Friday even. So yeah, but also on that, when it comes to the likes of these players, you mentioned there it has other effects. If Salah is 200 mil in the summer, what the hell are you? How much is the person you're getting to replace him then? Yeah. Because Chiesa's the only one coming up in my mind. He's done his ACL before. He's not at the highest point, but here you
Straight
go.
To Arsenal, mate.
Here's 80 mil because we know how much you've got, and also the price that they're going to raise the transfer window with is ridiculous.
So what? Okay, let's just have this conversation. Few questions. Is this Salah's last year as a Liverpool player, Dan Club?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Chloe?
Yeah.
Chris?
Probably.
Sound. What is the price at which you deal on Mo Salah?
250.
Now?
Whatever the deal is
happens.
done.
Next summer, I would take that 175 we were talking about.
220.
I'd probably look for around the 150 mark. The bid that they made, if it's an achievable 100 plus 50 for a 32-year-old, is probably enough for me.
Okay, because I think it's somewhere in between. I think if you're forcing Liverpool to accept the bid, and Liverpool are very strong because obviously he's got another year on top of this season on his contract, maybe it starts to weaken it a touch next year perhaps. And I just wonder whether you can deal. I think Chloe's point here, whether it's in the next few days, I don't matter, because you can strike a deal at any point during the season. You just can't actually bring the player in, can you? About whether they do a deal for next summer at some point beforehand. Now, we've talked about it already. What's the smartest thing for Liverpool to do here is going to be the really interesting talking point.
Got it. Time down to a new contract. When they've stopped talking to us after Thursday, extend this fucking deal, give him a little pay rise. Get that fee up.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This is why I went higher
really want
than
you
you
on
all.
400 grand a week, 500 grand a week, whatever it is.
For 1 year. This is why I went higher.
Add 2 or 3 years on top.
But then we're committing ourselves to too long of a contract with that wage. And if it doesn't have to come, we're tied in.
It's coming.
Either way.
The bid's coming.
But if it doesn't, we'd hate that. Only 500k.
I don't know what people would hate on this anymore, Dan, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's people who are like, well, what are they doing not accepting 200 million? But and then it's like, well, why would they? Oh yeah, you can't win. I think they should sort of deal out. Well, because I don't think his value is going to be higher in the summer than it is now. I think you could get 200 million for him this season, but I think you're right. I think it's more between 100 and 175-ish, you know, in that bracket, which is mad to say there's a bracket somewhere in the midst of £75 million.
Just a big bracket.
It is a big bracket.
I go higher because I know who we're dealing with, and I'm going to rinse you for absolutely every penny that you have.
There is something.
I don't care. 150 is getting you this right leg for me right now. So
Gives that oil rig.
Season.
Gives that oil rig.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
That pipeline, please. Yeah. There is a point on this. Is that's one thing. So like, they want Salah and De Bruyne as the next superstars to come into the league. But if there's a pecking order, it doesn't matter who's a better player. It's Salah's bigger. Salah's a bigger draw than De Bruyne. It's so known, so Liverpool have got that power in that regard. Is that at some point they're going to want Salah, and that could be over the next 10 years. They'll take Salah at any point into that league because he will be a draw, whether he's literally hobbling around on one leg or whatever at any given point. So Liverpool have got that strength, and there is a strength as well, I think, because of the Fabinho and Henderson stuff, where okay, all's well that ended well. We've managed to replace both of them and actually pocket a little bit off the top as well, so okay. But I don't think we took silly money for either of those. And I think with the gift of hindsight, when Caicedo becomes a £115 million player, I think you probably dig in for 50, 60 for Fabinho just for shits and giggles. Hopefully that emboldens them to play a bit of hardball, because worst case scenario, you just keep Salah. You've got Mo Salah playing for your team.
All day on deadline day, Dan will know this because we did a bazillion videos together. I was saying, do a deal for next summer, just do a deal for next summer. Don't do it here right now. I think and having now considered the position, I still think that's maybe the right thing to do. But I've also got this feeling that it doesn't matter what you get for him because it's just one more player in for you. Because it's like buying a house, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We're great, the market's really good. My house is now worth £500,000. Fuck, everything's worth £500,000. Yeah. It's like, well, I get 200 million for him. Well, Arsenal want 200 million for Saka. Yeah. It doesn't actually do me any favours having all that money. Yeah, it actually doesn't make any difference whatsoever, almost, unless you can buy first.
Yes.
And that's why you wouldn't do the deal now. Because if you buy in June and sell in July, then you're all right. That's the smart thing for Liverpool to do.
The other thing on top of this is Mo Salah can play in that league until he's 42. He's that good. He's at his peak condition right now, and he's 32. He can play till he's 40 in that league, like he just can. So you're buying the biggest player in world football for for exactly what they're after. And on top of that, he'll be there for the next 6-7 seasons because he's not going to go down. He's your big focal point. It's not just 2 years that you're paying for, it's the next 8 or whatever off us.
Exactly, yeah. And look, the thing with Liverpool need to be, we get confused on this as well, that that's all a lot of like, well, what do you get? You sell him for 200, who are you getting? We'll go and get Mbappe. He's not going to go get Mbappe. Don't worry about that. Liverpool are going to go and replace him. Yeah, no.
Literally, yeah, that was my first one.
Liverpool are going to go and replace him with a 40 or 50 million pounds player from the Dutch league or from Portugal or whatever. But that's I'm by the way, I'm fine with that. Just go and get someone. You want to go and get Mohamed Salah, age 23. Liverpool I don't think need to be going and making. I don't think you necessarily need to make a huge wave with this one. But what you get the opportunity to do is this is Coutinho 2.0 for me. We're going to need to replace Van Dijk before long, and we're probably Alisson's got years because he's a goalie, which is helpful, but the Robertson thing as well, and maybe another. That kind of money is a transformative impact on what we do next. So as far as I don't think we're going to need to buy huge volumes of players. I think we've got a decent number of good footballers. But if you can take him and you go and get a young lad who's ready for his breakout season, adding into the in the midst with a settled Diaz, Jota, Gakpo, Nunez, Gordon, and co, then that's absolutely fine. But if you can go out and get who's Guardiola next summer, who are the big players that are going to be moving? If that puts you into that market, we weren't in that market this summer. We weren't in that. Well, technically we were with Caicedo. That's where we've got to be smart with that. So I agree. I think it's a very fine balancing act between what point do you deal with the most value, but when's the best time for the deal to be struck? And again, who are you getting in to make that happen?
If we could sign all of our players before we sell Mo Salah, so then we don't get diddled out of money, that would be
That's the only way you can do it. I think the thing with this is it feels like there's a line drawn in the sand by Jürgen. Mm-hmm. That was the big difference for me on deadline day, and him doing that, press conference at whatever it was, 9:30 in the morning or something, saying no, he's staying. Like, if you now go against that, and your manager. This isn't, I've had a chat with the player and he wants to move on type of stuff. No, we're done. And if you sell him behind my back, I think you've got a major issue with Jurgen Klopp, and that might be the thing that means we don't deal by Thursday.
It's interesting, again, because this is the thing we never know. Again, talking about the Coutinho situation, is that it wasn't for a while that it came out. Because, again, people hated FSG 5 years ago as well, and 10 years ago, and all that kind of stuff. Everyone kicked off because of how Liverpool dealt with it, but it turned out the understanding was that we all thought that people thought Jurgen wanted to keep him and FSG wanted to sell him. When it was the exact opposite. Klopp didn't want someone who wasn't pulling towards the team, and FSG went, tough shit, mate. We're not getting bullied in the transfer market, so we dig in, and then that was the sensible thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens of this in the future. The good thing is, like, Salah is just such a professional that he will just crack on. Yeah. He's a star. He knows he's a star, and I think the team starting well will be helpful as well, because he can see a pathway towards one. Maybe leave on a high. Can we challenge for the title? Can we challenge for European? For European honours? Can I say I've then won everything at Liverpool, and then I get to bow out, and he gets his big procession and all that kind of stuff? He'll want that, and he deserves that as well. So yeah, interesting to see what comes of that. But yeah, I do feel this is very much like, it's kind of the best for all parties in some regards. Salah eventually will fade. And you don't want to be caught with a guy who could have been worth 150 to 200 million pounds. So it's one thing to let Genie go for a free and to let Bobby go for a free, but and then to lose money on Mane. But then this is something else. Had a few comments on that one, by the way. Was lost, but now I'm found. How much did it take to let Salah go? 200 million. Let us know in the comments what you think. What fee would you be dealing at
for Thursday?
I guess.
I don't think there is a fee for Thursday, but if it started with a 5, there's a fee.
£5. Mohamed says, so when Salah does leave, who would you like to replace him? I would like Rafael Leao.
Isn't he left winger though?
Kvaratskhelia.
He's going for
Kvaratskhelia, yeah.
Another left winger.
He said, but maybe that's unrealistic. My realistic option is Nico Williams. Good. Very good.
I thought if they did it right, I thought that Szoboszlai would end up playing there this season.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't have liked it.
I'd be all over Saka.
I want him. That's one.
Yeah. You're right in terms of like that statement. You've got enough money to go and really wobble Arsenal's knees with a big bit on there, and that's almost one where. I don't think Liverpool ever would just go, there's 170 million off Salah, here you go Arsenal, here's 175 million, because I don't think it never serves Liverpool's purpose to inflate the transfer market, because it's like anything, it's all well and good. If you can just about afford a Ferrari, it's great, but if you can't afford to fucking replace the tyres when they go, then what was the point? But yeah, I think that's I'd be all over that. When it all comes crumbling down this season, when the pressure of expectation is too much on Arsenal and they realise they're not quite at that level. Yeah, all right. And one last super chat before we move on to Szoboszlai from Ashley Frith. I meant to put this in earlier. It says, shout out to Dan for all his work. Top stuff. At this moment.
Appreciate it, yeah, nice one. Chris as well. Chris was with me on Friday. No,
nope.
I'll take it.
Ashley Frith literally chose to spend money to tell you that. He
I appreciate that.
About Chris for free. So,
Ashley's dead too.
That Ryan Babel interview was special, though. To be fair, I'll give him that.
Just quickly tell us about that.
Oh, he's boss. He was very complimentary about his namesake and obviously his compatriot. Yeah, he speaks really highly of him. Spoke really well, actually, generally speaking. So yeah, Ryan Babel on Redmen Plus, check it out. And there's more stuff going on there today about our new man. So yeah, all good.
Let's talk about the midfield rebuild then. I didn't expect to go that long on Salah, so maybe slightly less on Sobo. Sorry, guys. The midfield rebuild, as 'twere, staying a test to come. Stay the test to come, Chris. But so far, so good. I mean, everyone's talking about Szoboszlai, and rightly so, because he just looks like the next one.
Oh,
McAllister just slotted in absolutely seamlessly. Just to start with Szoboszlai, though, he feels to me like the next Mane/Salah. And what I mean by that is Liverpool were quite clearly in for Mason Mount, and the same way we were quite clearly in for Julian Brandt, and we were quite clearly in for Mario Götze. And for one reason or other, they broke down, and we went to another option. It looks like we've bought a fucking player and a half.
Yeah, I've said this a couple of times over the last 24 hours. Is like I was really excited for McAllister. You know, I don't know anywhere near as much about Szoboszlai because he obviously didn't apply his trade in England. But then now I'm Vibes FC for Szoboszlai. All I want to do is talk about him. All I want to do is watch him run over grass with this calmness. He's got everything that you want from a player. Technical ability, he's strong, he's fast, he glides around. Nothing seems to stress him out in any way, shape or form. And I think Liverpool, whoever it was that found out about that release clause, I mean, they're getting a big fat bonus, aren't they? Because excuse me, I think he was one of their top targets, but they didn't think he was achievable. They didn't think they were going to be able to get him, and when they found out about it, and it might be a Schmacker thing actually, and that might be the only thing that he does, but it might be something that we live with for the next 10 years, because he's got all the hallmarks of everything a great player has got. I mean, you see him running back at the weekend and, you know, throwing a slidey in our penalty area from distance, and it's just absolutely everything you want from a footballer, isn't it? And the engine on him, my word, like 2 games we've gone down to 10 men, and he's been everywhere, and he wasn't subbed off in that game. And he's still going with 5 minutes to go.
I said for a while that I think people think I've got like this major issue with short footballers. I haven't, but there's a point in the
it's
Premier
just short
League.
people in general, really, Paul.
Shortest, sorry. But in the Premier League, it's such a physical league. It's physique, power, and pace, and there's no accident that if you're over 6 foot and you've got pace and you're powerful and you're technically proficient, you've got just you're more likely to succeed. It's like how, look, Messi's an absolute alien, but Ronaldo is what you would construct. If you were trying to build the best player in the world, Ronaldo has that, and Szoboszlai's got a very similar sort of build in that regard. It's so hard to go out and buy complete footballers or footballers who are going to be complete. And it's so early, but I don't see yet what he doesn't have. He's a leader as well as all that, so like that mental strength as well. He's not just like Emre Can had it all, but we always used to talk about Emre Can brain farts. Like, did he just lack that little bit of something extra in psychologically? David James, the goalkeeper, had one of those kind of things. He looks like the complete package.
Oh, I think we're just scratching the surface with him as well. That's what's so exciting about it, because you're right, he's got all the things you just mentioned there, but we haven't even seen it really in full yet, because with Chelsea, we hardly ever kick. We end up with 30% possession. We're down to 10 men for 2 weeks, but in those games, especially the 2 went down to 10, he was just like a man possessed. And I said this a few times now, I love our players when they take offence by the fact we might drop points. And he's done that in those 2. He's gone, no, not on my watch, not happening. I buzz off that, to be honest with you, and he's done it again. But the weekend, that was coming. That was inevitable for me, that goal, that moment, because he's got that in his lock, and it felt like he was just announcing himself. But the way he celebrated it was just like he does it day in, day out, and it's the most normal thing in the world. Like, yeah, this is me. Like, first Anfield goal, whatever. This is what I do. Get used to it, basically. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm that guy. I am that guy. Yeah, don't worry about me. And it's interesting because the weight of the 8 shirt obviously weighed heavy on Naby Keita. I mean, a lot of things weighed heavy on Naby Keita, to be honest with you. But for him, it's just like, yeah, sound. Give me that shirt. Watch me go with it. And I just think we are in for an absolute joyous ride with this lad. And the moment you touched on there was probably sort of the key to entire. I mean, he scores a worldly goal with his wrong foot in his little size 7 shoes, which is a fascinating story. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen it. His dad made sure his feet stopped growing. So when he reached size 7 at like age 12, whatever it was, he put smaller size shoes on him, put like a 6 on him to stop his feet growing any bigger, because his dad reckons that
it's not his dad, it's all Hungarians, because Puskás had small feet.
Yeah, do you reckon he's technically better?
Unbelievable Hungarian side from the 50s, which was like the best side to never win a World Cup, and Puskás was in there. So they literally do what the Chinese do.
It's like feet binding.
This is what they do. And
so he's 6 foot odd with size 7 feet. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, regardless of that...
How is he not...
Are we sure this is...
regardless of that, his performance, his goal was like top class. But like you say, it's the moment where he's chasing back and he makes that tackle in his own box. You think, God, I'm in love with you. You are everything. Everything we lacked last season, he's got it all.
Does it not make him susceptible to tipping over?
It's mad, isn't it? It is mad. That's what's happened. He's got little feet.
Wow. Cool. Is this on a Plus show? Did we learn it?
No, I think The Athletic did it.
Over the weekend, I read it in The Athletic, yeah.
Mad. Absolutely mad. I don't even know how to continue with that. Someone else talk about Szoboszlai. But Chloe, tell us about how much you love Dominik Szoboszlai.
Oh, I don't even have words for it, to be honest. I've never been as excited. I think I said this on the day we signed him. I've never been excited for a signing for Liverpool as I am with Dominik Szoboszlai, and already 4 games in he's shown exactly why. Chelsea, you know, I thought McAllister was probably the better player, and everyone was talking about McAllister and how, oh well, he's already been in this league for Brighton, it's going to take Szoboszlai some time. No, it's not. I don't want to say he's quickly becoming our, you know, most important player, but in the last 3 games he's been absolutely ridiculous. And that goal, the technique, the finish is simply sublime. I actually sat on the cop and thought it took a deflection or something. Everyone was stood there like, is that nicked someone? Like, what's going on here? Like, it felt like it took ages to hit the back of the net. It just glided through everyone. But like you mentioned there, the work rate, the determination, you know, I think we had like 5 minutes to go and he's gone from the right-hand side of the pitch all the way into the corner on the left-hand side and blocked the ball, and the crowd roared like never before. 3-0 up, got like 5 minutes to go, but because he's chased the ball from one corner to the other corner, everyone was up on their feet. He's got everything. Gerrard-esque, I don't care what you say. I never saw the peak of Gerrard, sadly. That's just, you know, I've seen highlights, I've seen it all, but peak Gerrard was when I was an absolute baby. And if he's got anything like what Gerrard's had at Liverpool, my word, I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, no, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I think he just looks like you could see him being in that pantheon, you know what I mean? Because he's just the right shape. Like he's not like the skill set Zidane, but you know what I mean. I just like powerful, pacey, that ability to score wonder goals as well. But he's just. He wants it, he fights, and I mentioned it earlier on in the podcast, but there's just moments where he's going over to people and he's patting them on the shoulder, he's geeing people up. When Trent goes down injured, he goes to get like a gel to you know, like one of those glucose gels or whatever. But he's one of the ones over there just checking on him and making sure he's all right. He's a natural born leader. I got real like I could see him being, I know about Trent as future Liverpool captain, but it wouldn't shock me if next summer he's in the leadership group and then you move on beyond that.
He's captain of Hungary, isn't he? So it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Also, Jude Bellingham was a player who I was desperate for, and he's been boss, let's not lie. He's literally, he has made himself the main man at Real Madrid, but I see Szoboszlai as Jude Bellingham as well for us. The powerfulness he has, the way he strides with the ball. Jude Bellingham's obviously slightly different and he's still scored a couple of goals, but Szoboszlai for me is just... I never expected him to be as good as he was so quickly. I was really excited about it, but my word, I think we've got a gem.
It's the way he took to Anfield. You know, we've seen him 2 games now, and it's like he's just having a kick around with his mates. There's no pressure on him. Yeah, like it's mad. Like he must think he's one of the best in the world, because he's just come in and it's water off a duck's back. It's mental.
Lex McAllister, then I'm so pleased with this, and I think we always go into every season a little bit unsure with what the plan is. You know, are we a bit short here, one place or another? I wasn't totally enamoured with the idea of McAllister being like a regular 6. And look, Baccetic would obviously been very careful with him. Thiago's had a little setback as well, which is played into this. Endo, they clearly need to get him up to speed. And I'm also, and let's do them both in one, I guess. I'm not sure he's got the pace for the Premier League. And that's my one major concern about Wataru Endo. But McAllister's ability to get in there and drop in and still not look out of his depth. You know, we've played lads in that position in the past. You know, Lallana played at the 6 at times for Liverpool. Gini Wijnaldum was okay at it. I think it gets remembered that he was much better than that. He wasn't great at it. He was acceptably decent at it. Thiago was meant to be all right, but we had him anchoring the midfield during the injury crisis COVID season, and he really struggled with it. McAllister just looks like he could play him in any position in the midfield, and he'd be an absolute natural. He looks like if Szoboszlai's taken to it like a duck to water, McAllister looks like we've owned him for 2 seasons, which I think is the highest praise I can sort of give. Anyone want to?
I think you're right. He has been very plug and play for this Liverpool midfield, hasn't he? And the fact he's gone about his business so seamlessly is credit to him. Like, Szoboszlai gets all the plaudits, and rightfully so, because he's had those standout moments, whereas McAllister's kind of flew under the radar, but done his job very professionally, very efficiently. And that's not to say he won't have moments further down the line, because I believe he will. Certainly when the system settles and we're playing better football. Sunday was obviously really good, but there'll be tougher tests to come for McAllister if he continues in the 6. My overriding feeling on him in the 6 is it remains horses for courses. I think in games whereby we believe we're going to dominate possession and dominate the play and dictate terms, that's fine. And especially that means if Trent can go alongside him, because when he did it for Brighton, he obviously had Caicedo. So if he's got another lad there with him, I feel like he's more comfortable because he can then be a bit more relaxed and doesn't have to do all of the defensive legwork. With Endo, I still reserve judgment on it. The Newcastle game wasn't his finest hour, by any stretch of imagination, but I still think there's a player there and a player that will do very good jobs for us in certain games. But yeah, with McAllister, like I say, it's been seamless, his transition to become a Liverpool player. And the fact we haven't had to sort of talk about him in any way, shape or form, it's actually a really positive thing. Yes. We can just be happy that he's there and sort of be content with the fact he now plays for us and move on with the season, which is about as much as you can ask for somebody so new.
Cool.
Yeah, I think he's boss. I think I'll enjoy it even more when he's actually in the position that we bought him for. I'd love to see him on the left-hand side of an 8 alongside Szoboszlai and, you know, Mataro if that's who plays in the DM. I think he's been boss. The transition is what's incredible. The way he just controls the game from that position. He sets us on his way. He recycles the ball. It's like you don't really see him do much spectacular, but it's because he's doing everything simple. The progressive balls forward is boss from him as well. What I would say is I remember Chelsea and you know, the first couple of games that he played in that kind of role, he was on the edge of the box and I thought to myself, my God, what the hell is he doing there? The other day against Aston Villa, he didn't advance up the pitch. It was like he understood, no, I actually need to stay back now. But when he does get in and around the areas and advanced data, I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, for me, just to try and talk about something a little bit different than the other two on there, he's telling everyone where we're going to play football and how we're going to play. And I think he's instilled confidence in the back four to be able to play a ball to him when there are people around him, and he's comfortable just knocking it back to them and then waiting, and then when he decides we're going left or right, everybody knows, right, Alexis has got right, okay, everyone to the left. And that's the sort of, that I said it earlier on in the video, it's just he is the conductor, and you shouldn't be after 4 games in a red shirt. Like, you shouldn't be telling everyone in the side how we're going to play football, but Alexis has done that. People respect him in the side. You can see that, and he just makes time and space for himself and for others.
Yeah, no, definitely. Endo stuff, I make that point. It's only on early observations of him about the pace thing. He looks confident. He just looks like a footballer, you know. And we've not seen him. He's not played in a proper game of football for us, really.
Yeah. I was getting a lot of stick on Friday in the comments about my takes on Endo and stuff, and I felt like I was being harsh on Endo because I still wanted another lad through the door. Yeah. But it truly is, from what I've seen, the honesty is he doesn't look fast enough. Mm-hmm. But he looks like he can put a tackle, and he's going to do the simple things really well. Mm-hmm. You can hide a lack of pace with other players and with your system and stuff, but like let's be honest, he's probably not going to turn into the fulcrum of our midfield. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? He's a £15 million footballer who's probably here to do a job. Let's hope he can do the job.
Yes.
And if he can do the job, win-win.
Yeah, exactly. And I say, you know, we're in a situation where Bajcetic is back in training. He's been back in matchday squads. We don't know what's kind of going to happen with Thiago, but if McAllister can do that, and look, McAllister stuff for me is predicated on, have we got good quality players to play in advance? And Curtis Jones didn't have his best game for Liverpool against Villa, but he was absolutely sound. Yeah. And I've seen people who look at games differently to me, saying how much our press was just much more solid because Curtis was playing in the team. We've got really good footballers to do the offensive stuff. If McAllister really wants to do that, I do feel a bit sly on him that he might not get to do as much of it. But you know, sometimes you don't need a perfect 11. Depends on how the season kind of progresses. We're going to be doing the other teams on the Biased Transfer Podcast after this on Redmen Plus, where we'll talk a bit about City and about Arsenal and what have you as well, and United. Looking forward to that. But yeah, we don't necessarily need Endo to be a 10 out of 10 footballer. Is the kind of thing I'm driving at. I think you're kind of saying as well, Chris, is we've got other lads who can do the job. We had a lot of work to do in the summer. The Fabinho Hendo stuff clearly upset what we were doing. We haven't seen what Gravenberch is going to be for us just yet. We don't know what Pacetic is. We don't know how we're going to use Thiago. We might have loads of footballers more than capable, and Endo might just be a footballer. And sometimes that's fine, right? Absolutely fine. Gravenberch, just quick then, Chloe, how were you feeling when that one finally got over the line?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I was always in the camp of giving me Ryan Gravenberch, and to be perfectly honest, I know he's not the out-and-out DM that everyone wanted, but I do think he is someone that Jurgen Klopp can mould into whatever Jurgen Klopp wants him to be. The fact that he's already decided to piss off Netherlands under 21 and stay here to train and really get to know the system over the next 2 weeks as boss as well. It didn't work out for him at Bayern, but you're in Liverpool now, and we'll fully get behind you.
It didn't work out for Sadio Mane, and we know he's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited about this midfield, to be honest. I cannot wait to see Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai in some form together.
If you told me at the start of the summer, Dan, that Liverpool were going to rebuild the midfield with Alexis McAllister, Ryan Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. Look, bearing in mind, I didn't really know loads about Szoboszlai, but I was aware of the profile and what that, how the FIFA Footy Manager crew would be all over that as a signing. Endo as a sort of like a covering sort of midfield, I'd have been absolutely made up with that. Losing Fabinho still feels a little off for me, if I'm being honest. But in terms of replacing legs, energy, endeavour, more, skillful, hungry footballers.
Physicality, your favourite.
Exactly. Taking Endo out of it just for a moment. Those three, I'm just made up with the business.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's hard not to be able to bit your hand off. Certainly, like you say, if we had ended up keeping Fabinho as well, I think that would have been the icing on top of that particular cake, or, as it were, signing somebody of that sort of ilk from a couple of years ago, especially when we got him from Monaco, obviously. But, yeah, no, I'm delighted with the business we ended up doing, to be honest with you. Had we not got Gravenberch on deadline day, different conversation entirely, but we've added potential, we've added players with very high ceilings, we've added athletes, we've added very technically proficient players who, as we've seen with Szoboszlai, are willing to work as well. McAllister the same. Haven't seen that from Gravenberch as of yet, but this is a big old opportunity for him, because we've already referenced the fact it didn't work for him at Bayern Munich, and he is going to be desperate. He's going to be very hungry, and he's going to have a lot of desire to make this work, and I believe he will. I really do. I think he's a very talented lad who's getting spoken about in the same breath as your Tchouaménis, your Bellinghams of this world when he was at Ajax. Hasn't worked at Bayern for many reasons. I think a couple of them. I think Nagelsmann's the one who signed him. Doesn't work for him, so he ends up going. Salihamidzic, the sporting director, he was the one pushing for Gravenberch, and he ends up leaving as well. At the end of the season, a bit of a mess there, but this is a big opportunity, and I think one he's going to take with two hands, and I'm really excited. I think for short term, I spoke to Chris about this at the very sort of death of Friday on deadline day, is that I think we'll just see him in lots of different positions and sort of dropped into lots of different scenarios, different games, and let's just see what fits. Just be a footballer for us, because I think Klopp, that's the exciting thing. Nobody really knows what Klopp will make him into, and that's so exciting. But I also think it allows us, and I said this, it allows us to be a bit fancy and a bit more tricky with our formation. You go to a 4-2-3-1 with this. Chloe mentions there Szoboszlai, McAllister and Gravenberch. There's your 4-2-3-1. Give that a game. So I'm so optimistic that this is going to work out, and this is something Chris said that stuck with me over the weekend. I think Bayern's loss will be Liverpool's gain in the long term with this, and I just think it's going to work so well.
Yeah, just some comments on this.
You don't even remember saying that.
It was
a long day.
It was late and it was long. Said a lot of things.
Bear in mind, if we signed, Andre in January or whatever, there's your DM. There's your out-and-out
exactly,
DM.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
Liverpool didn't want a DM, so everyone getting disappointed about not getting a DM on deadline, they seemed pointless to me.
Yeah.
Because they'd come out through James Pearce and, he'd let us know that we weren't going to sign a DM, we were going to sign a versatile player. And if you just went in deadline day with that, well, we got our versatile player.
That goes back, exactly. That was what we've been trying to kind of stress along this way for a couple of things. Wait until the paint's finished before you judge, the brushstrokes or whatever. But also, when you've got an idea of what it is they're shooting for, then yeah, your expectations change. When we were looking for a utility player, then fine. I've been trying to like place them like for like. There's a comment here which I'll come to just to expand on that point in a second. But also Tomato, great name. Says Endo's cover seems a good lad and decent utility man. Give him time. To this one from Gord, he says Endo was a clever footballer. He's perfect sitting back and protecting. Milner replacement pretty much. Yeah. And if I go stack them alongside each other, if you're saying Endo is Milner with me, it's mainly Milner and the fading of Fabinho to some extent. Gravenberch for me is Jordan Henderson. It's a guy who, because a lot of this was made of like Henderson was the six. He was, and he was a very good six, but we were desperate to move on from him, and he was just our understudy by that point. If Gravenberch may or may not be that, but if he is that, then laughing. If he's just another guy who can do a bit of 6 and a bit of 8, then that's very cool. And then what you were adding in Szoboszlai and McAllister is McAllister what you wanted from Thiago, perhaps, and Szoboszlai is just your transformative. We're changing what we do. We just want a fucking boss footballer who's going to score a lot of stuff. He's almost the new thing and what we're bringing in. And when you do that, I think it's smart. All of a sudden, it's a really rounded set of transfer business. But I can't balance against the expectation of like people might have wanted us to sign someone better than Endo, but they chose to sign Endo. So you can either get a cob on with what they decided to do, or just watch.
Maybe
and
us
see what
signing
he's
Endo helped in us signing Ryan Gravenberch, and you don't know. And on top of that, I think we all wanted the centre back. We were all screaming for one, so I can't give it a 10 out of 10 window. But in terms of year-end contract, goes in a couple of years' time, and to think that we're building for the future here and he's leaving us. By the time he goes, those players should have peak performance, peak years, and hopefully if he does leave us, then I'd rather he signs another contract. But if he does, he leaves.
It's really too soon to be talking about Klopp leaving.
Just lastly on the centre-back thing, because obviously I titled the video about Liverpool ready to challenge. I feel like if we'd lost or drawn to Villa, I felt like it signified a season where we were going to be battling for 3rd to 6th in the league. Still high end. I still think we were, top 4 more than likely. But it was going to be, our focus was going to be much more on the development, and there's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, etc., etc. I think we've just about got enough to compete. We're going to need a little bit of luck, and I think the defender thing is where that's going to be lynched.
Yeah.
In that Conor Bradley not being, having a little injury problem of himself, I'm not sure there's quite enough cover for what Trent does without us switching it to being Tsimikas or someone on the other side potentially. How injury prone Matip, Konate and Gomez is going to be the lingering sword of Damocles hanging over our head all season long on this one. But I don't know. I think it's City's league to lose. But I haven't seen anything from anyone else so far. It's very early that says anyone's going to be definitely better than Man City. I don't think Arsenal look quite at
Liverpool look like they're the closest challengers. I think Liverpool on the pitch with what we've got can mount a challenge if everything goes really, really well.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfectly, and I doubt that it will go perfectly. I see Liverpool comfortably in the top 4. I do have a concern with what's going on away from the playing staff and the coaching team. I think that the way that Liverpool have sort of handled this Schmaka, Ward, Edwards thing is a little bit of a concern. We're hearing more and more rumours about Billy Hogan being the guy who's been in these things when they've got a director of football in. Yeah. I do have a long-term concern about what's going on there. Obviously, there's always the fear that we just don't have enough money to compete with Manchester City. That's always just hanging over our heads like the sword of Damocles. So, but on the field, it feels like there's been a changing of the guards and the squad believe that they're good enough. And that's probably the most important thing. And while they believe they're good enough, I'm going to believe that they're good enough, and I'm going to be there every week screaming my heart out to show them that.
It feels like, Chloe, for definite, bringing in of Gakpo in January, Diaz last year, Szoboszlai now, McAllister, they look of the level. And I think for a side that's won everything, you see it a lot in history in football where it starts there undercut, and it's all of a sudden Manchester United are signing Kleberson and Jemba and the best players to ever play for that team are looking and going, I'm sorry, who are these bums? And it feels like we've brought in not just the legs we've brought fucking good footballers in who can hold their own, and they're bringing new skill sets, and that's actually raising the level of the whole squad.
Yeah, it is. There's many leaders now on that pitch. There's people who you can look to and you can rely on. He's going to get me out of this situation. Remember last season where it was like Stefan Bajcetic, who was the one who had to step up and be like, lads, pass me the ball then, because none of you are doing it. No, we've got an entire midfield for that. We've got Trent. We've got Joe Gomez, who's just slotted in and being perfect for a game of footy. You know, you've got people up top where we can just interchange, changing on 60 minutes to bring fresh legs on, and the fresh legs are Cody Gakpo and Diogo Jota. Are you having me off?
Yeah, I turned around and said, remember when we used to bring Divock Origi on, and it was like, well, he's a European. Like, but my point was, this is a lad who's now on loan at Nottingham Forest, and we're bringing on fucking international, top international.
It just feels like the team feels revamped. I feel like like you said, vibes, it feels positive. It feels like, oh my God, these are players who, like, the bossing it so far now, but in 3-4 years' time, I can't wait to see Szoboszlai, Ryan Gravenberch, Trent Alexander-Arnold, McAllister, Luis Diaz. I can't wait to see them then. And hopefully before then, obviously, they can get us trophies. But it's just a really positive outlook right now for me.
Brilliant. Great. Excellent. Oh, it's a great... Winning before an international break.
Nothing better.
Breathe it in.
Nothing better.
So good.
Lovely stuff. I had a real fear over that as I was racing on the motorway to get back for the game, and part of me was like, I've had some bad times last season when I've been away, missed games. I missed some of our really horrible defeats last year, and I was like, oh God, is this going to be another one? And blah, blah, what happens if we go into the international break and we're not on top? Whereas as it turns out, Man United and Chelsea are the ones that loads of people are going to be talking about in a miserable sense or laughing at, and we are included in that. Come and join us.
Also haven't won in 4 games.
No.
So.
Oh, Everton. Come and join us for the Bias Transfer podcast over on Redmen Plus. We're going to be talking about the Arsenal-Man United game. We're going to wrap up the transfer window in general. Really, really good stuff. And of course, as mentioned, Dan's got a whole litany of incredible interviews, including Ryan Babel. What was the one you said that's going out later?
So I've done Ryan Babel. I've got David Seagar as well, the Opta analyst, data journalist. He was exceptional, by the way. I've also spoke to the We Talk Ajax podcast this morning to get a take from his first club. And the best interview is yet to come. I'm not going to give details away because, as Chris knows, I don't like to jinx these things. But genuinely, I've had word from the man. It's going to be on Wednesday, and it is going to be the best one yet.
I don't know who this is.
No one, you don't know who it is. I can tell you guys after, but if this one comes through,
wrap it up.
I believe it will, then it's going to be the best. I mean, Ryan Babel's already on there, and the best is still to come. So, cool. Yeah, just saying.
Yeah, head to redmenplus.com. Fill your boots on Ryan Gravenberch and beyond content, videos, and in podcasts. Anyway, that is the Redmen Originals podcast for this week. Big smiles from everyone for those of you listening. Just see the smile that's on your own face, and then know that it's on all of our faces as well. And yeah, we'll be back with another one next week. Ta-ra. Hey, thank you so much for watching the show. You're amazing. And if you want to signify your legendary status, then head over to redmenplus.com. Join as a legend tier subscriber. Not only you get all of the great video and podcast content, you'll also be entered into our monthly prize draw for great signed Liverpool gear. And you'll get access to our Discord as well, full of amazing Liverpool supporting human beings. Head to redmenplus.com and join as a legend tier today.